Our next audit examined National Defence's project to replace Canada's aging CF-18 fighter jets with advanced CF-35As. We found that estimated costs of the Future Fighter Capability Project have significantly increased, and that the project faces several risks that could jeopardize the timely introduction of the new fleet. National Defense originally estimated that the project would cost $19 billion. The audit found that this figure was based on outdated information, and that by 2024, the projected costs had increased to $27.7 billion, almost 50% more than the original estimate. This figure did not include other essential elements needed for full operational capability, such as certain infrastructure upgrades and advanced weapons, which would add at least $5.5 billion to the total estimated cost. Our final audit report examined government contracts awarded to GC Strategies Incorporated, an Ottawa-based information technology staffing company. From April 2015 to March 2024, 31 federal organizations issued 106 contracts to GC Strategies. In this audit, we found that federal organizations frequently disregarded government procurement rules that promote fairness, transparency, and value for Canadians. Par exemple, The findings in this audit echo those of previous audits, where we found deficiencies in how public servants applied federal procurement rules. There are no recommendations in this report, because I believe the government does not need more procurement rules. Rather, federal organizations need to make sure that the rules that exist are understood and followed.
Laura Osman, The Logic.
Hi, Auditor. I wanted to ask you about GC Strategies. Did your investigation uncover any wrongdoing on the part of GC Strategies, or did these issues boil down to essentially poor contract management on the part of the government?
So I think it's important to know that my mandate doesn't allow me to go look and audit GC Strategies. I can't audit private organizations. I can only look at what the public service has done. And what we found here is that public servants were not applying procurement rules that at times are very clear. This echoed findings that I had in my previous audit on ArriveCan, as well as a previous audit on professional services that focused in on McKinsey & Company. I said it back then, and I'll repeat it now. I have no reason to believe that this is unique to two vendors. And that's why I believe the government needs to take a step back and look at why this behavior is happening. And is it that there are just too many rules that just keep getting added on audit after audit, so that folks don't understand all of the rules, or are people trying to go around them to make the process faster? Either way, the rules are meant to support transparency and accountability, and I would expect that those basic elements are followed by public servants.
Given the investigations you've done so far on McKinsey and GC Strategies, do you have a sense at this point of how widespread these issues are in the public service?
Well, I can only speak to those two elements, and in both cases, the vendors represented a really small percentage of what was spent on professional services contracts by the federal government. But in the McKinsey work, we had looked at 10 Crown corporations and 10 departments. In this audit, there's 31 federal organizations, including one Crown and departments. And we found issues in almost every contract that we looked at, which tells me that there's no reason to believe it's limited to these two. And it's time for the public service to go back to the basics in understanding procurement rules and why they should be followed.
Emily Bergeron, Le Presse Canadienne.
In regards to the GC Strategies audit report, how much does cronyism play into it, and whether or not the fact that perhaps this one company or other companies may have a preferential relationship with certain departments, and that continues upon recommendation. And I'd like to know whether or not public servants have been held accountable. They're responsible for this. And why to your knowledge, have any of the decision makers, and what level are they? That's not clear. When you put it out there and you just say public servants, we don't know exactly who is making these decisions. We know that the minister holds the ultimate responsibility, but at what level? Is it the ADM? Is it the DG? Can you just clarify that a little bit, please?
So following our audit on Arrivecane, and then McKinsey was quick thereafter, when we responded to the unanimous motion in the House to go look at all the contracts issued to GC Strategies, I knew that we were going to be looking at the exact same time frame. So I believed that we would end up with very similar results, and that's what today's audit is confirming. But because of the findings in those previous audits, we wanted to see if there was a thread of a common public servant moving through departments, and why was GC Strategies being awarded these contracts, and we did not see that. What we saw here was public servants at all levels. Sometimes decision making was at the working level, other times it was higher up in the executive ranks, just not following the basic procurement rules that are meant to show transparency, good due diligence, and value for money. In our conversations with public servants, at times they were surprised that there was a requirement to document certain things. And so I think it's important to know that the rules exist to be able to show to Canadians and parliamentarians that the public service has done their due diligence when they spend taxpayer money. And that's why they just need to go back to basics here and remind everybody of those rules.
When it comes to GC Strategies, you didn't really have a recommendation other than for public servants to follow the rules. Why not recommend something with more teeth or penalties for public servants to follow the rules when it comes to this stuff?
So there currently is, requirements within the public service if the rules aren't followed, that there are consequences. When a public servant is given a delegated authority, especially an important one, to commit public funds, typically the first step is to remove that authority and make sure that there's some training so that the public servant understands what they're supposed to be doing. But that is left up to every single department to decide. A lot of the issues that we saw were unique department from department, which shows that they all need training, some basic reminders of the rules, and really that's up to every head of a department to decide how to ensure that they comply with federal rules.
In response to your report on GC Strategies, the procurement minister said the government has already taken action on improving evaluation requirements, requiring transparency from suppliers, and improving and clarifying the documentation and tracking process. I'm wondering what you make of what actions have been taken so far since your previous reports and just leading up to this work. Do you think that enough has been done to kind of address the issues?
So this audit was interesting. As I mentioned, I was responding to a unanimous motion in the House of Commons that was taking us back in time to look at a period we had already looked at. And when I had done work on the first professional services contract, I had said I didn't have any reason to believe it would be limited to McKinsey. And here we are looking at work on GC Strategies and finding the exact same findings. Following that previous work, there were some changes made, and I know there are some more coming this summer. I can't tell you whether they will work. I haven't looked at them, but I still think the government needs to take the step to look at, do we have too many rules?